But yeah, thank you guys, of course, for coming. I'm glad you were able to get here before the show started. But when we're doing this, especially if when I'm doing this, I always want you guys to see this from the perspective of, you guys seeing it through your own lens in terms of how this applies to you. But I always say, like, as leaders, we have to see things through that lens, but we also have to see it through the lens of, is this something that I can use for my people? Is this something I can use for my social media, for my team, for my groups, for my one-on-ones? And if so, you guys are part of the M&M, like, reach out to me if you enjoy this, because I'm like an open book. I'll share all of my notes with you, everything you need that you can use, whether it's a live workshop, a one-on-one, whatever that process is, okay? So for this weekend, definitely, how does this apply to me? But number two, is this something that I can use to help my clients get through that, all right? Now, what we're gonna do today is it's called the Mount Everest Exercise, okay? What the Mount Everest Exercise is, it's kind of like what we do when we first do a breakdown session, but it's a little bit deeper than what we typically do. And yes, we're gonna talk about goals. You guys already probably have goals. We're gonna think about that, but we're gonna think about them a little differently, and we're gonna think about them pretty deeply to get you into that space, all right? It's gonna put you into a different space than what you typically would do if you were just having a breakdown session with someone, all right? Now, the reason why it's called Mount Everest Exercise is because I know that you guys, everybody wants to, like, see massive success, whether it's in their business, their personal life, all of this great stuff, right? But when we see the top of the mountain and we start from anywhere on the mountain, we're looking up. And when we look up, we have a different perspective than when we're on the top of the mountain. Because we're on the top of the mountain, we can look down and now we can reflect on everything that we did to get up the mountain. Now, here's the thing. Do you guys know that you don't have to wait till you get to the top of the mountain to experience not only the feelings that you'll have, but also the path that you took to get there? You can actually fast forward and go there today, which is what we're going to do. Is I want you to see your goals, see where you are at the top of the mountain, and have a different perspective. Instead of you looking up going, oh my gosh, this is so crazy, you're going to be looking down, all right? And this is a way that we can reflect, beginning with the end in mind, just like how we typically do. But I'll ask you some questions to go in a little bit deeper than you guys are used to. And it might make a few of you go uncomfortable, and that's exactly where we want to be. That's exactly where we want to be, okay? Now, you guys know that the typical question that we talk about when it comes to, like, goals, right? So if we go out 12 months from now, like, what is your definition of success? Over a 12-month period of time, like, if we can remove all the pain, all the struggle, all the sacrifice, and just get handed a goal, like, I could just say, oh, let me just push the easy button and give you this goal. What would you want to be able to achieve, right? Now, that's typically how we do it in, whenever we're having a life coaching session. One of the things that I do differently with my clients, and you can ask them because two of them are right here, is I never make somebody take and pick just a business goal, because, like we were talking about earlier, if you have just a business goal, you're going to think it's okay to lose sight of the other important areas of your life in order to achieve this goal. And so what we do is when we have a filter, and the filter is this a good business decision? And that's it. We fail to, like, think about what are the other areas that would be impacted if I say yes to this thing or I say no to this thing. That's why I like to bring in a personal goal as well, right? So whenever I sit down, and I did this at Yosemite with Teresa because I have her ask me questions so that I can pull out a personal and a professional goal, I find a way of, like, how can I achieve both? And when you ask yourself, how could I do this and this? Now you have a different filter, right? So today I want you guys to think about your goals when it comes to, like, the next 12 months, the next 9 months, however you want to go to the end of this year. And I want you to think about, okay, what is a professional goal that I want to achieve, but also what's a personal goal that I want to achieve? Now, personal goals can be different. For some people, it's like weight loss. For some people, it's family connection. For some people, it's like, it could be any number of things, but I want you to think about what is my professional goal and my personal goal, and how can I achieve both, all right? So I want you guys to take a few minutes just to brainstorm, like, when it comes up for you, and I know you probably already have your idea of what your business goal is, but I want you to think about a personal goal that you can tie the two together. Let's do this. Instead of thinking about, like, whether it's all the steps that it's going to take to get there, or what your day in life is going to be like, thinking about related to how you are right now, I want you to just think about, like, if you could just paint a blank canvas, like, we're not using the past, we're not using the future, we're not using, like, where your husband wants to live, like, we're not using that. We're going to a place of, like, this is what I feel like would be the most beautiful picture of like what it would look like a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, knowing that this does not mean that you have to go there. This does not mean that, oh, now everything has to change in my life. I feel like that's kind of like where we get stuck a little bit, thinking about like, oh, I've got to think about it, and then I need to have all the steps in the row. Like, I'm not asking you for that. I'm just asking you to like explore a little bit and go, what would be the perfect day for me, right? What would be the perfect day? Does Oscar come in at 1 o'clock in the morning saying, I'm up, right? Does the toddler, like, when you think about it, like, what would that perfect day look like? I mean, would you guys go to the beach? Where would you be at, right? What would you guys eat? Would you guys go out to some special place to eat because you just want to celebrate what it is that you've been able to accomplish, right? Do you want to take them someplace so they can explore something, right? There's no like perfect thing right here. It's just more of like you exploring it for a second to let your brain go there, right? Because if your brain doesn't want to go there, obviously there's something that's kind of like holding you back from that. If your brain is like, no, I want to learn like life in general. Yeah. So write down, what are some of the things you're doing? Where are the kids going to school, right? I know that's important to you. Like what are, like just writing it out, because it's, your brain is telling you have to do it a certain way or it's going to be wrong. And it's not. It's like, this is just an exploration so that you can go, oh, wow, I didn't even realize that that's what I really want, or that's where I would, or this is how much time, or this is what I would like to be doing. And this is some stuff that I would not like to be doing. You can even start there, right? I want to make sure that this doesn't happen on this day. Like that would be one of my great days where this doesn't happen, right? And so just being able to explore it a little bit just allows you to give your brain a little bit of freedom to think about it in that respect. Does that make sense? So here's what we're going to do. So we talked about doing the right things, hanging out with the right people, learning the next right lesson, kind of solving some problems in advance, right? So what you guys do to do now is like, you're going to go into groups. There's going to be a group of 2 and a group of 3. And I want you to just really ask each other these questions. Like, who are you hanging out with? Like, we already know what everybody's goals are, basically, because we had a conversation up, but like actually diving in and saying, okay, what were some of the things you were doing? What were some of the things you weren't doing, right? We're going to use coaching skills right now. We're not using mentoring, just strictly like, what are some of the things you were doing? What weren't you doing? Who were you hanging out with? Like, how did you make sure that you stayed true to that, right? How are you reminding yourself of what you're fighting for, right? How are you reminding yourself about the goals that you want to achieve? Whatever kind of comes up for you based off of the conversation, there's no right or wrong question that you can ask, but I want you to pull out like the things they were doing, the people they were hanging out with, the lessons they were learning, and anything that they could solve in advance. Just ask them some questions to really help pull some things out for them, right? Remember, like the goal of this is not to have a complete plan at the end of it. It's just to plant different seeds in here so that you can go out and you can find these opportunities. Because what I want you to do is like, for the remainder of the time here, but also for the remainder of the next, couple weeks, is I want you to think about, based off of this, us having this conversation and opening your mind, which sometimes can be like a little bit of a struggle because you're like, no, don't go there. I want you to see how many other opportunities you now see and discover and come up that you would have never, ever thought of, because now you're open to it, right? And it can be a little bit of a difficult thing because our brain doesn't want us to do that, right? It wants to be focused on just this one thing. But when you have this conversation and your brain opens up a little bit, you'd be amazed at how you're like, oh, this opportunity came up. Oh, this came up. Like, it's crazy. Like, I literally just wrote that down and then this happened, right? I know some of you guys have heard this, but like when I was, before I connected with Josh to do the life coach certification, I was writing out my 5-year vision inside of a program that I was a part of, right? And they're like, just write whatever comes to your mind, right? So tell me, like, what are you doing 5 years from now? And it was really weird because it was like a 1-pager is what they call it. I wrote down, I'm teaching other people how to coach like me. And I'm like, what? Where did that come from? I wasn't even a life coach at the time, guys. I was a health and fitness coach. I'm like, I'm teaching people how to coach, right? I had no idea where that came from. But then fast forward a year and a half from there, Josh reaches out and goes, hey, first off, do you want to join my sales team? And I did. And then he's like, hey, do you want to put together a life coach certification? I'm like, that's crazy. Like, is he reading my diary really? And it would have been there, but I probably wouldn't have been open to it if I hadn't just been okay with exploring it without going, okay, what's the roadmap to get here? I was like, no, I'm just going to write it out, right? Sometimes things happen like that. And now we're open to it if it presents itself, right? But it would have presented itself, but we wouldn't have been open to it before, right?